And greetings to everyone. Good morning, buenos días a todos y a todas. Thank you, Emma, and thank you also Commissioner Maquilla and all the teams of CCATE and HealthSpark for this tremendous and beautiful effort that we have done together. And and just to give a brief introduction of why we do what we do. In 2014, CCATE started the participatory action research, exactly to start to create knowledge and research from the community. Since then, a number of reports has been created. However, on the current situation that we are living, we realized that it was so important to bring this to the next level. And that next level brings togetherness and brings a partnership. And HealthSpark has been a fantastic, we have partnered together so well, bringing together the gifts that we have and also the love for social justice and for social transformation that we have. Therefore, let me tell you about this. Our objective through this assembly is part of the first step of a strategy that in November 2024, CCATE launched to create rings of solidarity, a space for protection. What it means this is to foster solidarity, bringing together the community, practicing deep dialogue, deep listening, and deep empathy. We realize that while everybody was shocked for what is happening, we had all the feelings inside, all the ideas in our head, but we didn't have the dialogue that allow us to listen each other, to understand each other, to see the different perspectives. And then these community assemblies bring that closeness in a horizontal dialogue. Legislators, representatives, authorities from local government, a school district, local authorities, police, commissioners, and federal Congress woman, Dean, and also Scanlon, has been responding through the different community assemblies. This has brought, and community, most important. Also, we have invited universities. We have invited also Penn Law School, Villanova Law School, and lawyers. This has brought a horizontal dialogue of understanding, of getting each other to understand each other, and to understand the challenge that we have. One of these challenges is the prevailing narratives that create, and then we can create counter narratives. Those prevailing narratives that are criminalizing the immigrant community, then we can create counter narratives. But also we realize that bringing together the community slow down the actions of ICE because each resolution that is taken, like the resolution that the county took, or the resolutions that other that the police departments has taken, like rejecting 287G, and all the resolutions of the school districts slow down the actions of ICE. Why? Because they know that they cannot foster their work or the massive operations when there is no place where they can operate. Therefore, this serves as a slowdown of ICE operations and the anti-immigrant policies. Also, it forged that the different sectors, we can align our efforts and our resources. Dialogue enables to bring clarity, enables to understand the different spheres of power, enable us to bring together the gifts of everyone to align our efforts. Everybody wants to do something, but many times we don't know how to do it. Therefore, through the community assembly and the results, it can direct nonprofits, foundations, local government, state authorities, federal congresspersons. That is what was the objective of this assembly.
Wonderful. We would like to turn it to Maribel Valderrama at this point to talk about the community perspective and the staff perspective as well in terms of personal stories that we heard, and some of the key themes from the report. Maribel, are you on?
Maribel, are you on? Eh, Let me see. Maybe she had because she was on. But if not, I can go into the.
Yeah. Maybe, Obed, if you want to transition into
Yes,
some of the key themes, and if Maribel's able to join, we can talk about it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Therefore, the key things that we found are the followings. First, we found out that their priorities, that the dialogue and also the surveys, you need to know that we had 102 responses, 51 responses in English, 51 in Spanish. That allows to see how the allies see the situation, how the community see it, where they are close in the points of view, where they are far. The findings that we had, and also in 20 groups of dialogue, this is what we found. Legal support and protection came as a priority number one. There is an urgent need for accessible, trusted legal resources to support immigrant neighbors who are impacted and navigating the complex of vulnerable situations. That is why, at this point, we see that this legal assessment is something that we need to put resources, that we need to put together teams that can help the families. The second is family readiness. While many share that communities are not adequately prepared to respond to both deportation threats and incidents, there is a need to create family readiness plans, which is different than know your rights or the assessment after someone is detained. If the family prepares before, if the family has the legal assessment before to understand their situation, to understand how they can prepare financially, to take the decisions as a family, each family is different. Therefore, family readiness is what I will say the focus has to be. At CCATE, every Friday, we have sessions of family readiness, and we have been advancing since last year, preparing families to get them ready in case that a disgrace come to them. We don't want them to come, but it's very important to be ready if something happens. In that situation, if you ask me, what will be the most important legal advice on this? It will be the family readiness. For now, before the third thing, it will be the emotional health. The emotional toll remains significant. But in the surveys and also in the dialogue, the groups, emotional health came in the groups came as a number one. In the surveys came as a number third. But tell us how important today is to understand the feelings of fear, anxiety, uncertainty that are affecting the daily life of the families. The schooling are affecting the relationships, is increasing the fear among the kids, about the teenagers, among the parents and the relatives, and the long-term effects of this. It will take time to heal the trauma that is caused by the division of families. There has been a lot of talking today about the effects on the school. If you see the report start to affect the families start to feel the effects in the schooling, which personally I think is more of what the surveys reflect, based on the things that I hear and I see every day talking to kids. However, the reports shows that it's an important situation there. Therefore, emotional health is something that we have to focus. Therefore, those are the three areas where I believe foundations, nonprofits, local government, state government, federal, we should pay attention. Legal support, family readiness, and emotional health. Also, I would like to say the media responsibility was very important to see where the trust of the information is. The trust of information is mostly in local media. While the report shows that people do not trust the national media, local media is very relevant. That is why to create reliable local media, like the podcast that we create, like other sources that we create, where reliable information, proven information is presented to the community, is where the trust is. Also, it was very interesting that everybody trusts what the friend shared to them. But if the friend is not well informed, then we can misinform. That's why it's so important to be sure that the media that we present is something that is reliable. That's why, for example, in the case of dialogues of the immigrant community, I like to invite the people, then the people can inform directly the community without intermediaries. Centering the youth voices, we realize that we have a gap of information, and as Commissioner Maquilla mentioned, we need to get more those voices. We need to get more the view. It was recently that Dr. Holly Link, who is also here present, and Director of Educational Programs of CCATE, she and me, many of the we were analyzing many of the recent drawings, because we have been following drawings of the kids since November 2024 until last week, to see how they are expressing the situation. And we have seen the pain, we have seen the anxiety, we have seen the fear, the insecurity that the young people is having. And many times they don't find the words, but through art they have been expressing. Therefore, our next steps, it will be to center in the youth voices. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think with one thing that we were really interested in as well is that because we conducted the survey ahead of time and we allowed responses in both English and Spanish, which is roughly a proxy, we think, for Latino residents who are directly experiencing that, this versus allies and service providers who may be interested in supporting them. There were some key areas where there were differences in the priority level between the two groups, which kind of indicates to us that the people who are experiencing this situation have slightly different needs or priorities than the people who are designing services or funding programs or providing aid to them. And so these areas in particular on legal support, family readiness, emotional health, those were all areas where there was somewhat of a difference between what the Latino residents were identifying as being important versus what allies were working on. And so that's another reason that we wanted to call out these areas in particular. And there's more detail in the full report as well, where you can see the breakdown of this. But I think that it's really important for those of us in the service sector who perhaps identify as allies to really take a look at the data from our Latino neighbors to say, like, these are the things that they are wanting, and do the way that we're providing services actually align with that. Obed, I think the point that you made around family readiness is also really interesting and maybe not as well understood. Could you talk just a little bit more around maybe a story that you've heard or a particular instance where a family either had prepared or had not prepared, or the kind of work more specifically that families are to prepare for a potential detainment?
Yes. One of the, let me give you an example of this. Um, One of the families one time came to us telling us that they have a detainee, uh, that they had to have a certain amount of money that they had in their power. But because the person who was detained had the only access to the money of the family, the wife called on to reach out those resources. That could be only resolved through a power of attorney before detention. Therefore, it's tragic that this family had the resources, but because it was not prepared, also, for example, the double nationality, it was another issue. They were concerned what will happen to their kids when it was needed the signature of the father for the double nationality and the process of the double nationality. Therefore, we realize when someone is detained and the family comes to us, without the preparation, it becomes more difficult to help them. It takes more effort to help them than when the family has been prepared beforehand. When we had the Super Gigante raid past July, that was one of the things that emerged as a very important. That if the families are prepared, have the conversation, have the legal advice beforehand, and had the decisions taken, if something happened, there is already a plan for them, and they were already prepared with powers of attorney. They were already prepared with the double nationalities, with the custody of the kids, and with their belongings. Uh, those will be some of the examples, but definitely we have found some situations in which when the family is not ready, it becomes and takes 3 or 4 more times effort to help them.
Right. Thank you. I see that Maribel has joined us, and so I want to welcome you, Maribel. And
thank you.
sorry if there are tech issues there. And I just invite you to talk a little bit about the community perspective and some of the stories that you may be hearing or experiencing, kind of shed some light on this from a more personal standpoint.
Okay, I want to share some comments from the immigrant community. One moment, please.
Maribel Valderrama is a CCATE community liaison for immigration affairs for everybody who. One of the decisions that we took this year, it was to open that possibility for the community, and HealthSpark was very instrumental for us to move ahead with this plan.
Okay, the comments from the immigrant community and anxiety crisis. One of comment was from John. Was from a young for 13 years old son who is a U.S. citizen now wants to carry his passport with him out of fear that he might be detained just because of his appearance. It is breaking heart that a child has to deal with those worries. It is a child of 14 years old. He wants to carry his passport wherever he goes because he is a fear because he can be detained just because his appearance, and that is what his parents express to us. The fear and terror of leaving home and not being able to return to your family because it no longer feels safe. Go out with confidence. The fear and uncertainty of not knowing who is watching you. I can say that terror is now a constant presence in our lives. It is a very sad and unfortunate what we go through every day is worse than a terminal illness. And among of testimonies expressed by the community, a deep concern stands out regarding family separation, a fear shared by both parents and children. Families are forced to consider critical decisions in the face of the possibility of forced rupture, evaluating the devastating consequences that it will entail not only at individual level, but also from a social perspective. When the family is fractured, the fundamental basis of society is weakened, and racial gaps that took decades to mitigate are deepened. This phenomenon represents an alarming setback in the processes of inclusion and citizen participation, retaining the identity of nations whose value resides precisely in richness of its cultural diversity. The
Is
family.
there, go ahead.
Go ahead, Albert.
Is there any experience that you would like, of course, without disclosing any name, of the cases that you would like to share?
Well, I have been working with the families since that happened in farmers market last year in June. And I can feel, I can see how the family has been affected during this time since this administration start. Everybody is feeling not safe. Wherever they go, wherever they do, they are feeling not safe. Okay, and they are asking for support. They are asking for legal support for plans that can provide the resources that they can take enough resources for defend themselves and for them can be prepared to face any face to the
Díganme en español si quiere.
sí, o cualquiera cosa que ellos se puedan presentar ante ICE o ante una corte de migración. Ellos están pidiendo recursos para poder ser preparados para esta situación.
The families are asking resources in case that they had to face ICE or they had to face a court.
I'm sorry for my English.
No,
An
no, no, no,
immigrant
no.
too. An immigrant too. And yeah, but I'm not fluent in English, but thank you so much for your patience and for your help. And this is the work that CCATE is doing during this time with HealthSpark support. So HealthSpark and CCATE are doing a good job, and I'm proud to be part of this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maribel. And your English is great. Don't worry for it. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And I think it's just so important to remember that there are real stories and real people behind this. And we're trying to provide data and action in a way that really pivots us, or I should say data and ideas that really pivots us to take action, but the stories are really what drives all of this. So Obed, I want to turn then, I think, to what's next and what we want to invite some of our community partners here to be thinking about as we move into this summer. You mentioned some of these pieces, but maybe you could talk a little bit more around some ideas that we had begin to garner about where we go next and where our partners in nonprofit, government, philanthropy, and elsewhere can be joining with us, along with the many other organizations that are already working on this to take some more concrete action moving forward.
Yes, some of the concrete action moving forward is that as CCATE and HealthSpark, for example, we found commonality. I believe that many other organizations can find commonalities to start to collaborate each other, to start to close gaps, because something that can be the specialty of someone, it can be at hand to us and vice versa, no? Therefore, part of the idea of this is actually to start to find out where those resources are and then where we can channel in order to be more effective and to be wiser in the use of the resources. Therefore, deepen community partnerships will be a great thing, and I will encourage, for example, foundations to start to establish grants where is required partnership, where is required partnership. That will allow people to be intentional, to work together, to be together, to bring efforts together. That will be a direction that I will suggest, for example, to foundations. But also to think in the sectors that we talk: legal, family readiness, emotional health, information, that will be. The other, create a space for youth dialogue. At this moment, we are working towards to organize HealthSpark as CCATE. We are planning to do coming assemblies, and one of those, it will focus on youth. It will focus on youth. We have started conversations with a group of young people already and organize them, listening them in the base of participatory action research methodology that we work, and that is coming. Also, on the fall, we are planning to have a sequence of this community assembly. Therefore, but create a space for youth dialogue is key. Then if in your organization, if the next events, you can open also that space, that is great. Expand emotional health resources. One of the things that we are finding very difficult is not only resources in Spanish, but just to have emotional health resources. If we say in Spanish, it's even more narrow, the situation. Therefore, somehow we had to come creative, to become creative, to see how we can find those resources and come together. Therefore, if you in your organization has those capacities, or you have ideas that we can, how can come together, I think it's time to touch base on that. Therefore, that might require more conversations. The amplified community narratives. Of course, the first invitation that I will do is come to the podcast, because we want to present what resources are available to the community, what is doing your nonprofit, what is doing your work, but at the same time that we can amplify what are the effects and the impact that is taking the situation in our communities. Only doing that, it will bring conscientization to the communities in general. Yeah. And encourage civic engagement is very much to say, get and say, I want to help. I know now the priorities. Find a nonprofit where you can help following those priorities. And here we have a very good example of a good number of nonprofits. But that civic engagement, it has to do, for example, with how we can work together with the families, how we can assist in education, how we can assist in emotional health. If I am a lawyer, how I can serve in family readiness. If I am expert in financials, development for family planning, how I can help with that, giving workshops. There are many ways in which your gifts can be put in practice.
Thank you so much, Obed. I want to go back to one piece that you spoke to a little bit about community narratives. And one of the major differences that we saw in the survey between allies and Latino residents was where folks get their information from. And, I'm a big NPR listener, and I think NPR, National Public Radio, is like the top source of information for most of the allies that responded to the survey, which I thought was very interesting. But for community residents, the top local source of news was local podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I think that for those of us who count ourselves as allies, it might be a really interesting way to begin to consume those same sources of information as the Latino residents that we're trying to support. And the podcast, Obed, that you put on is a really great way to get that local information and hear the things that our residents are also hearing, and I think also just get a lot more local on the ground information. So we can link to this your podcast link in the chat, but I really encourage folks to listen to that and then to share it out with your friends in your network as a way of just kind of creating more space where we're having the same kinds of conversations and sharing the same kind of information.
Yes, and I would like to mention this. It was a few months ago, because the podcast started in Spanish, reaching now the Latino community, the Hispanic community. But it took, I will say, 1 month and a half when allies started to come and approach us and say, we want to listen to, we want to hear what you are saying in Spanish. And then in CCATE, we started to make the effort to record in English and to record in Spanish, in order that there is that we can reach out allies, and we can reach out the Hispanic community. Therefore, at this moment, we have completed, I think, 50 episodes in Spanish and 35 in English. And whenever we can do the interview in Spanish and English, we do it. However, just to let you know that it has been a great effort to do it bilingual, to record twice. And it has been great sometimes to be walking on the street and find out that someone that says, I listened, I follow, and I am getting informed, no? Mm-hmm. And therefore, I invite allies to also get informed through the local production and to the local work that we are doing.
And kind of keeping a pace with what's happening. And you've interviewed members of the Norristown Area School District School Board and the Chief of Police in Norristown, local legislators. Nellie has been on your podcast. So, really local voices that have a lot of on the ground knowledge, just to add to any national coverage that we're also hearing about the topic.
Yes, yes. And just to mention that we have had local representatives, federal representatives, social leaders, young people, and yeah, it's a space, nonprofits, foundations. It's a space where the community can get informed, but at the same time express, project, share ideas, take action.